What up, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast, the show where we talk about crowdfunding. We bring on real-world examples, real guests who are crushing it with their campaigns, and they share with you exactly what they're doing in order to get funding, in order to generate results, in order to get traffic and attention. They share with you what they are doing, what's happening behind the scenes. It's very easy to look at a campaign, like, for example, today's campaign, a 6-figure Kickstarter campaign. It's very easy to look at that and be like, I can't believe this person was able to do that. This is like mind-boggling to me. I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So this is kind of my mission, is to share with you what's happening behind the scenes, to pull back the curtain, pull back the hood, so you can see what goes into a campaign that's raised over $129,000, like today's campaign for first ever smart heated slim jackets and leather gloves. So not only that, but also a little bit of the inspiration that goes into the product as well. I think that's really important. But one of the biggest hallmarks, I think, of this podcast, and just doing this for so many episodes, is that you begin to realize that the more that you can just spot what successful people have in common, the more you can replicate it. You can go back into the archives of the show and you can see all these different guests that I've had on the podcast since 2015. Tons of people from many different categories, from many different walks of life. Some people doing their first campaign, some people doing their 20th campaign. And really, I think the biggest takeaway in just listening to these and being a host as well on this show is that literally anyone out there can be successful when it comes to crowdfunding. There's nothing that is holding you back. All the things that we think are holding us back now are kind of honestly working in your favor. Like, it used to be that, man, I don't have any money, or I don't have any way to get attention, right, before the internet existed. And now these things are so easy to access and so easy to tap into a reservoir of funding, which is Kickstarter, right? Which is crowdfunding. So there really aren't any more excuses, in my opinion. However, it can still be kind of intimidating. You know what I mean? It's going to be a little bit intimidating to run a new campaign. So aside from looking at what successful people have in common, I also think it's very important to develop your skills to understand this whole crowdfunding craft. You don't have to become an expert at it, but you have to understand at least a little bit of the high level points when it comes to it. Also, just being willing to change your way you think, right? That's so important. One of the biggest takeaways I'd say from doing this podcast as well, being willing to be open-minded, because so many campaigns that we don't even think would be successful, so many products that are interesting or nifty or offbeat end up being mega successes, right, when it comes to crowdfunding. So at the end of the day, it's all about training, man. It's all about learning. It's about investment in being willing to just get the right information. Getting access to the right information is huge. And I think as well, thinking big. Thinking big is one of the things that everyone struggles with. A lot of my coaching students are just selling themselves short. They have incredible ideas, incredible innovations. And just because it's the first time they're doing it, they kind of think smaller than I think is necessary, right? They just kind of like put a glass ceiling on themselves. And what I try to do with my coaching students, what I try to do when it comes to people that I'm working with, when it comes to my clients, is really going and swinging for the fences. It's so important to think big. Not only does it kind of open up the mind in terms of creativity, but also you will be surprised what you can actually accomplish. And I think listening to today's podcast is a great example of that, how you can literally pull off a 6-figure raise and how anyone can do that out there in the audience. So first thing when it comes to this is that if you want to get access to my free information and education that I'm putting out there every single week, cutting edge techniques, news, trends, when it comes to crowdfunding, all that, you got to hop on my Killer Crowdfunding newsletter. You got to do that, man. So go to check out this link to hop onto this free Killer Crowdfunding Tips newsletter that I send out once a week. You can go to crowdcrux.com/newsletter. That link is crowdcrux.com/newsletter, crowdcrux.com/newsletter. That is a great place to go if you want to get cutting edge techniques, the newest stuff that's coming out when it comes to crowdfunding, really great stuff. And also at the end of this podcast, I'll be sharing a new opportunity that I'm going to be kind of putting out there so that you can interact if you want to. You can also get access to a new blueprint that I put together. So we'll be sharing about that at the end of the podcast. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode and learn how this individual was able to raise $129,000 plus with this campaign. And it's coming up right after this. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. We have a two-time successful Kickstarter creator on the show who also is bringing really interesting story and I think a lot of great insights for you today when it comes to crowdfunding. And we can talk a little bit as well about their product. Adrien, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to joining you today.
Definitely. For those who don't know about you, maybe we can kind of first start with your first product as it was unveiled with crowdfunding and kind of start there.
Yeah, 100%. Since the first job I ever had back in I think it was 2015, I've been working with companies that launched with Kickstarter. So I was kind of familiar with the whole idea. And by 2017, we started working on, we could say heated wearables, but basically the goal was to find a solution for people that suffer from medical conditions that are negatively affected by cold weather. I'm talking arthritis, Raynaud's, poor blood circulation, the list goes on. And from 2017 till 2020, we were just focused on really nailing down this problem and making a solution that you can realistically adapt into your day-to-day life, not just something that's bulky and ugly that works on paper. It has to work in reality. So long story short, from 2017 till 2020, we managed to basically tick off these requirements that we had identified for a perfect heated wearable experience, which meant that we have to make it smart, and we took it to crowdfunding. There is some backstory about how we kind of funded that campaign, because to have the campaign go live, you also need some funding for making the video, making the prototypes. But long story short on that, also I used my my savings that I was going to buy my first house, and I basically had no chance of failure. I didn't have any room for failure. So
oh my gosh,
I met
insane. Yeah.
It was intense. So I really did my homework. I didn't take any risks. I followed all the best practices. I honestly met with every single crowdfunding agency out there. I went to CES, I met some of them in person, and I was like a crowdfunding sponge. I absorbed all of the knowledge there was to make sure that I don't go bankrupt.
Yeah. So first of all, when it comes to that, why do you feel like most people, when you pull out that idea, like, why don't you take your savings that you're going to put towards your house and put that into this new product? What made you so confident? Like, why do you think you were able to do that when a lot of other people might stop at that point?
Well, it comes down to two dimensions, and each of them have different stages. The first dimension, as it goes for any entrepreneur out there, is mindset. For me, I realized that I need to kind of get out of this 9 to 5 loop. And if I keep doing this, if I keep just like having a daytime job, I'm not going to have the time that's required to build up a startup. So, I kind of scraped off all the plan B that was outside of my company, Quanta Vici, and I focused all of my plan Bs within Quanta Vici. So if, for example, this doesn't go well, what do we do? And in the second dimension, it kind of expands on that. We did multiple stages. We did the soft launch first. Our soft launch, we basically used CGI. Kickstarter is really strict on CGI, computer generated graphics. So we did not use any CGI for Kickstarter, but the soft launch was basically just a simple landing page for lead generation. We worked with Nuke Digital back in 2020. I think it was March, around the same time that all of this crazy pandemic was rolling out. And we saw, that was like the first stage that we saw that the conversion rate for leads is working. We, even for a few days, we charged some people for kind of registering to secure their early bird discounts. And that gave me the confidence to proceed. But before that, even before that, we did like surveys. We used SurveyMonkey to ask people. Like the first products we launched were gloves and socks, but originally we were going to do hats, heated beanies. And the survey showed that the demand for gloves is way more.
So basically, a lot of your confidence seems like it came from interacting with customers, potential customers, interacting with people that saw the product or saw versions of it and got excited, right? And were willing to try to find out where they could buy it, it sounds like.
100%. It's all about people. You got to talk to mentors, advisors, people who have done this before, even if they're just like 5 days ahead of you in a similar journey. The creators have a lot to teach you. So don't be shy, reach out there. I try to do my best, such as an awesome podcast like this or making YouTube videos to kind of pass on what I have learned. And then, of course, the end user, you really have to talk to them and don't worry about being annoying. People actually, some people really like to share their feedback and make sure that you're on the right path. Yeah.
Well, why do you think it was so important to you that you decided to go out on your own and to get out of the 9 to 5 loop, as you mentioned, right? Why was that so important to you?
Oh man, it's even in the toughest days here at Climb, I feel so blessed. And that's all because, of course, when you have your own company, you're adding value to the shares you hold. That's the financial aspect. But that's not the main thing. It's such a blessing that I get to wake up. And first of all, I have ADHD. So my ADHD is fed with a variety of different tasks. One day I could be dealing with some C++ code that's running on our firmware for the devices, and the engineering team asks me some questions, and I can use my coding skills, and then 5 minutes later, we have a pitch to investors, so I have to really work on that, and 10 minutes later, the agency calls, you have to check the Facebook ad, something is going on with that, and then it just keeps going. There's such a beautiful variety of these different tasks, and when you have a 9 to 5 job, at least in my experience, you're just limited to a certain responsibility. It's not so full of variety.
Yeah. And also, I mean, when you do go all in, as you mentioned, and you take your plan B and you put that in the same company that you're doing, it's almost like you are so serious about it that you see opportunities, right? That you come up with creative ideas, that you work harder, and it gets way more rewarding as well, it sounds like. So that a lot of people talk about that. You actually executed on that. And then with your first campaign, you raised over 300,000 Canadian dollars, right? With more than almost 1,000 backers for your first project, which is phenomenal. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fantastic because unlike this launch, we didn't have anything to build up on. It was a brand new company. We hadn't set up our for production like injection molding. We hadn't set up our logistics or a fulfillment center, and all of these things. We didn't even have a Shopify page. So the fact that our first launch was met with such a welcoming spirit from the backers, it was fantastic. That's what really helped us start up.
When that happened and you went live, you started to get more and more funding over time, what did that feel like? Was that a tremendous sense of validation? Was it financially really exciting because you can recoup your investment? Like, what was your mind thinking about when you first saw that people were really clamoring to get one of these?
Maybe it wasn't the healthiest outlook looking back, but at the time, I was just so laser focused on just doing an amazing job that I wasn't as appreciative as I should have been. I was really focused on just how can we enhance this? How can we make this better? How can we reach out to more people? How can we spread the word better? And doing everything for the first time, it's kind of like you have a lot of blind spots. So I was constantly thinking and asking, the people I was working with, what could be our blind spots? Why didn't we, for example, get featured on that outlet? Why didn't this happen? Why didn't that happen? Are we going to hit 1 million? And you're just the sky is the limit. So you want to kind of go for that million. So that was my mentality. I was like, why aren't we hitting the 1 million? And then looking back, especially after we partnered with Best Buy, we partnered with the warming store, and we went to a few retails, we realized that, we actually killed it. It was really good,
Well, first of all, before we get to that, after you've done this mega raise, what was that like? What are some of the lessons with getting this product into people's hands, right? The fulfillment aspect. It sounds like you had some insights, right, when it came to that.
Oh, yeah, for sure, a ton. I connected with the CEO and founder of Smart Halo, I think a couple of months before our launch. And I was like, hey, man, thank you so much for getting on this call with me. What advice do you have? Literally anything that could help. And he was like, so your product is a hardware thing, whatever the cost and duration you expect the production for this hardware to take, just in terms of time, I don't know, he said triple or quadruple it. And in terms of cost, he was like maybe not dabble it, but he did say that you're gonna have like some unexpected expenses. And you always hear that the most basic and rookie mistake entrepreneurs make with a physical product is that they don't take into account shipping. For our products, we charge separately for shipment. We got the rates. We thought we know everything, but little did we know that clearance fees when certain material arrives to China because of the trade war with the US and China, even though we are Canadian, we're a Canada-based company, and we had some bugs. My biggest fear was that we would overlook some detail and it would be like replicated in thousands of units. So I was really obsessive for checking each stage, testing the crap out of each stage. And that really enabled us to not fail as a company. Because honestly, if we had produced, let's say, 200 of that few thousand first units with a fault, then we would have been absolutely screwed. But fortunately, despite some time setbacks, we were really diligent in our testing process and we didn't really have any production issues. In fact, like defect rate was 0.08%.
That's great. That blows away, I think, a lot of other people out there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your attention to detail, ironically, with the ADD aspect as well, it's actually really paid off. And you just paying attention to everything has actually been a really good thing, right, for your business, it sounds like.
Yeah, like my team, we use Asana. It's been great that I've had the opportunity to work with these different companies that work across software and hardware. So I've seen many ways in which startups fail and die and many ways they thrive. So we document everything. I'm very careful when it comes to picking the team members. We have a fantastic team. And again, using Asana to plan everything and just sucking it up and working on the details paid off.
When it comes to some of the other things you mentioned Best Buy, like how did that come about? Did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? How did that come about in some of these other outlets that you've connected with?
Yeah, that was awesome, especially when you're a startup and you're trying to get your name out there, get some credibility. And then Best Buy comes along. It's like, it's the best feeling ever. I remember it was summer. So, as you can imagine, smart heated wearables are a very, very seasonal product. As I always say, people don't want to be wearing heated socks with their flip-flops at the beach. Yeah. It just doesn't feel nice. And I was talking to one of our advisors at the time, and I was like, okay, so obviously we're not going to be very busy on the D2C side. Let's focus on B2B because, Quanta Vici actually has a huge B2B side on the business model. One of the biggest missions that we have is to make this smart heated wearable technology available for many other brands and, products. So I was like, okay, so B2B has different aspects. Let's focus on selling more of our units. Let's go to who would be the best partner. And I thought of Best Buy, especially, growing up, I am a bit of a geek. I don't know if you noticed that, but I've always loved Best Buy because they have all of these cool gadgets and it's not like some of these smaller gadget stores. So I was like, Best Buy, let's reach out to Best Buy. And I started looking at profiles, stalking people on LinkedIn, and I sent like 5 emails, and next thing they booked a call with me. They wanted samples. I sent the samples and they were really welcoming. It just worked out too well, compared to some of the other things in life that, especially entrepreneurship, that
the willingness to reach out, that willingness to use LinkedIn, right, and to pitch people cold. I mean, 1 out of 5, that's a pretty good ratio. So just being willing to kind of lean into that, it sounds like really paid off for you in a huge way.
Oh yeah, I'm totally used to that. Back in 2017, that we were just starting to make this happen, I had more challenges trying to find a really good engineer for the hardware, the embedded side, than it was to work with Best Buy, because I remember I had to reach out to like 40, 50 different local embedded engineers, and then none of them either had a rate that I could afford at the time, or I just didn't feel confident in their ability. And then I had to like asked each of those 40 people to introduce me to some other people. And at one point, I had reached out to like 200 something engineers. And fortunately, we did find the right one. He's still working with us, amazing guy. But since day one, I learned that if you really want to make things happen and find the right people, you have to be willing to just go out there and obsessively pitch and reach out to people.
Has that level of hard work and obsession been something that's always been with you? Or do you feel like you've kind of developed that over time?
Not really, like I can tell you how I did in school. My GPA was like C minus, I think. So I certainly wasn't hitting up the profs.
However, you obviously have been super hardworking, very focused, and like you said, obsessed, which I think is a good thing about this product.
Oh, for sure. Like when it comes to Quanta Vici, I'm just like, in fact, like I went to Mexico for a couple of weeks and I kind of felt bad because, the cleaning personnel kept knocking on the door and I had just locked myself off and working the whole time. That's the other thing, I remember one day I went to my friend's house and he had come home after work. At the time I had my 9 to 5 job and I was like, he was so excited about his job. He set up his work laptop and hooked up everything and was so passionate about his job. And I looked at him, I was like, man, you're so lucky. I wish I was this passionate about my job. And, I just like didn't have that drive. And then now for Quanta Vici, I have that. I still don't pay myself and it doesn't change anything. When I wake up in the morning, that's the first thing on my mind. When I go to bed, I'm like, sometimes I wake up to go to the bathroom at like 3, 4 a.m. like an old man. And I just like have ideas. I'm like, oh shoot, I should like improve that customer journey stage, it's crazy.
That's so interesting. It's almost like you're doing art and engineering and kind of business all in one, right? In that way.
I love it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it really becomes something that you're passionate about, you love. So a couple other questions, right? When it comes to this new project that you've launched, first of all, you should definitely tell the listeners a tiny bit about why this is better, what they can use it for. But then we can kind of maybe talk a tiny bit about that.
For sure. So last April, the one that just passed, we launched the first ever smart heated jackets and leather gloves. And we thought that this would be a great strategic move moving forward for Quanta Vici. Of course, the best time to launch heated wearables would be like we did the first time, which had a great level of success, winter. But this time we launched in spring because we wanted to take our time during the summer to make the units and deliver when people need them. Mm-hmm. And of course, this being our second launch, we have the advantage of amazing partners such as Best Buy, the Warming Store, Product Pine, the latest in Germany, like it goes on. And that kind of gave us the freedom to be like, okay, we can launch in spring. We are obviously going to miss out a big chunk of opportunity in terms of getting Kickstarter funding, but that's going to be enough for us to deliver these units when people actually need them, which is starting September. Mm-hmm. And during the summertime, we would also have these units for the retail partners. And this was a great strategic move because Best Buy, for example, or Product Pine, their platform is not designed to fund a new product.
And then when it comes to this one, just kind of looking through the page, you've done a very good job of highlighting benefits, functions, etc. One of the things you mentioned, before the show was just the importance of that over vibe. I just was curious if you could expand a tiny bit on that point.
For sure. So I will say that despite the fact that we knew that we are not going to have the level of success that we had for the previous launch on this new launch because of the seasonal nature of the product, I took it as a learning opportunity to better understand how we could really improve things. Because here's the thing, when we had our first launch, we obviously went overboard with everything, PR, sampling, literally every possible aspect. But when things don't go exactly as you planned them, it's kind of better because you start to really look into what you could have done better. Of course, Kickstarter does let you track some of your sales to some extent and know where things are coming from, what did good, what didn't do well. And when you have a successful launch, you kind of know what worked. But then when your launch is not as successful as you wanted it to be, then it really opens your eyes to things that you could have done better. And this is a great case study because we see that the same technology in styles that are in higher demand, jackets have a much larger market, did not do as well from the same company. And if we take away the seasonal nature, which is like a big deal, our sales dropped to like 1% after March. And it's crazy, like 1% of what we sell in the month before, in February, for example. So, that was a great learning opportunity, because what are the few things that every agency tells you? Besides Quanta Vici, I've worked with at least a few other campaigns as a consultant to help them kind of launch, and all of them have raised over $100,000. But for them, because they are my clients, I feel responsible, so I don't invite them to take risks. For Quanta Vici, I was like, okay, so what are the main rules? You do not launch multiple products on the same campaign. A lot of backers are kind of doing a impulse purchase kind of a thing, so you don't want to make them think too much, which takes away that impulse. And then what's the other thing? You got to do pre-launch. Pre-launch is a no-brainer. Unless you have a Kickstarter launch death wish, you do not launch without doing pre-launch. You got to have your leads ready. You got to have there are clear formulas for it, but basically 30% of, you have to have enough leads that if 1% of your leads convert on the first day, it would be covering 20 to 30% of your internal goal. So having that in mind, I was like, okay, so I followed this rule for my first launch. I forced my clients to follow it for their launch, and it has worked really well. Now I have this existing customer base, and I'm kind of running out of time. Let's just skip the pre-launch part. Let's not do it as strong as we did last time. And the results really showed. And that was, I would say, if I'm going to openly say that we made a mistake for this new launch, even though it has done great, we are projecting that it's going to end up on 100K. And that I think according to an article from Funnel today, it puts us in the top 1% or something, or like 2%. But still, if I am going to openly go on record and say that we made a mistake, one of them would be, as I said, we launched multiple products. We've got brown, black, leather gloves. We've got jackets, 2 different styles. Each of them have a base model and a smart model. It's just crazy. Too many options. And then seasonality is like a given. In the beginning, we said we're not going to take that into consideration because it's kind of like a duh. But then the second thing is, as you said, pre-launch, we didn't do pre-launch, which was just insane. So it's great. That's the benefit of being an entrepreneur. You get to kind of do a sanity check on what you know to make sure you're not just doing it because someone told you have to do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot. Well, awesome, man. A lot of really good advice, really good tips. First of all, where can people go to learn more about your site and about some of the stuff that you're doing here?
Yeah, Quanta Vici. Our website is just quantavici.com. And you're active on Instagram. We have a team member who constantly puts out content on TikTok. It's funny. You should check it out. We have a YouTube channel. It's all under the name Quanta Vici. And then I myself, as I mentioned, I am super thankful. I honestly would not have been where I am today without the help of mentors or people who just were kind enough to loan me 5 minutes of their time. And so I see my responsibility to share openly whatever I learn as a creator, as an entrepreneur. And I try to put this content. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, I think that's been a huge breath of fresh air, right? And the fact that you're willing to do that, as well as be transparent with how you felt right throughout the process, and even mistakes and stumbling blocks. I think that says a lot about your character. And I think that says a lot about your brand, for sure. That you guys are very transparent and you're working to always improve. And you're even waking up in the middle of the night, man, right? And you're thinking about how to improve this product.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we can end it on this note. So, when it comes to the listeners, if you want to, you can speak directly to them and you can leave them with a final word of encouragement. It could be an inspirational quote. It could be some final tip or anything like that. And we can end on that note.
Yeah, 100%. So you just gotta remember that whenever you see someone that has succeeded at something or has done something that is your dream, you just see the end result. You don't see the thousands of times they fell down, they failed, and they got up. So whenever you fail, just get up and cherish it, learn all you can from it, and only focus on what you can do next. And remember that it's all about the people. If you're making a product, think about how can I make people's lives better? How can I help people? Don't focus on the money. Don't focus on those other things. They're just distractions, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. I'll be sure to link everything up in the show notes and wish you success with your upcoming launches as well.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being on your show, and I hope I have created some value for your listeners.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you took away some great tips when it comes to launching your Kickstarter or your crowdfunding campaign, and hopefully as well, a different mindset change. Like being able to not only do one of these campaigns, I think is important when it comes to like the tips, techniques, the tools, but also getting around the right people is very important when it comes to this. I also think it's really important when it comes to just putting one foot in front of the other, being willing to take action. I think this is one of the biggest hallmarks of my coaching students is the fact that, I'm able to get people to take action. And I know that sounds kind of strange because honestly, like most of my audience is really great at taking action. However, sometimes there are just roadblocks. Sometimes there are things that are just difficult to move by, whether it's because you don't know what you should do next, you don't know the right path forward. You kind of get analysis paralysis, right? So, if you're not really at the point where you can invest in a mega A to Z campaign, which does get extremely pricey, right? To be able to do something like that. But you do kind of want a hand holding. You do want the step-by-step process. You do want help going through this procedure. I've actually put together a new offering, which I call my Kickstarter Mentor Package. This is for people that are looking for ongoing coaching with me specifically, as well as to get access to some of my private training modules, walking you through how to do things like a pre-launch, walking you through how to actually get traffic, to get pledges, to get backers on Kickstarter, to rank well in the algorithms, to put together a killer page that's designed to convert people actually into becoming backers of that campaign, email marketing, social media, all the things that are at your disposal to do a project. I put this into this new offering so you can get access to things that are basically how to get instantly funded in record time. How do you engineer a viral Kickstarter campaign? What are some of the formulas that I have for developing a killer Kickstarter pitch video? And even how to be successful, even if you don't necessarily have a very big crowd. And we also get into some of the more neat nitty-gritty, for example, powerful weapons of influence that work every time to deliver funding. So you get access to this system as well as getting access to me. And this is again on a ongoing basis, a Kickstarter mentor, if you will, when it comes to going through this. I'd say for most people out there, you need to be in the mentorship package for maybe a month or two before going live or thereabouts. Some people out there are looking to do a longer campaign, maybe 3 months. I'd say about 2 months is average when it comes to that. So if you want to learn more about this, if you want to explore this, you want to join the Kickstarter Mentor Package, you can go to the link I'm about to mention and you can learn more about that there. You can go to the link at crowdcrux.com/VIP. That link is crowdcrux.com/VIP, crowdcrux.com/VIP. So again, you're going to get access to me on a monthly basis. You're going to get access as well to my complete training, breakthrough strategies for launch results, tactics to triple your funding. You're also going to get access to any workshops that I'm posting there as well as customer support, of course, when it comes to my help with my students, etc. So this is a really great package. If you really are invested in your success, you want to also get access to me, and you also want that blueprint when it comes to what do you have to do every step of the way with every phase of the campaign. This is going to be for you. And again, you can pop in, you can pop out if you want to. You can pop in for a month, you can pop in for 2 months, whatever it is, I'm opening this up for you. So again, that link is crowdcrux.com/VIP. Go and check it out. Thank you so much. My name is Sal. Give me a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube. Come give me a rating and review if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes. And finally, man, thank you so much for being willing to show up, because again, that is one of the hallmarks of success. One of the biggest parts of success is you got to show up. You got to always be like a sponge absorbing that information. I hope that you go and listen to some of the other episodes I got out there right after this one. Thank you so much. My name is Sal, and I will see you next time.